It was a bright Monday morning, but for Danielle Parker, the day had already started in a rush. Her alarm hadn't gone off, and when she finally woke up, sunlight was spilling through the curtains much later than it should have been. She jumped out of bed, heart racing, realizing she had only 30 minutes to get ready, eat, and make it to the train station. Today wasn't just any day. She had a job interview that could completely change her future. Still wearing her wrinkled scrubs from the night before, she ran to the bathroom, brushing her teeth in record time. Her mind was spinning. She couldn't afford to be late, not today. After months of struggling with long night shifts at the hospital and barely making ends meet, she finally had a chance at a better position. This interview was her hope, a way to move forward and finally breathe a little easier. She grabbed her bag, her coffee, and her phone, almost forgetting her wallet on the kitchen counter. As she stepped outside, the cool morning air hit her face, waking her up completely. The streets were already busy with cars honking and people rushing to work. Danielle joined the crowd, walking fast, then jogging, then running. Every step echoed her thoughts. I can't miss this train. Not today. At the station, the usual chaos awaited her. People pushing past one another, the sound of announcements echoing, and the smell of roasted coffee mixing with city air. Danielle squeezed through the crowd, checking the digital clock above the platform. 8:55 a.m. The train she needed was scheduled to leave at 9 sharp. 5 minutes. That was all she had. Her heart pounded as she dashed down the stairs, clutching her bag tightly. Her shoes clicked against the floor and her hair bounced as she weaved between people. She could already see the silver train waiting on the track, doors still open. Relief washed over her. She was going to make it. But in that exact moment, something caught her eye. Near the bottom of the stairs, an elderly man was struggling to lift a heavy suitcase. His gray hair gleamed under the station lights, and he looked lost, his cane wobbling as he tried to balance himself. People walked past him without stopping, too focused on catching their trains. Danielle slowed down for just a second, torn between two choices: keep running or help. She glanced at the train again. The doors were still open, but the warning chime had begun. Her pulse quickened. If she stopped now, she'd lose her chance. She could almost hear her mother's voice in her head, reminding her that opportunities don't wait forever. But she could also feel another voice deep inside, the one that made her choose nursing in the first place, the one that always told her to care, to help, to be human. In those few seconds, Danielle's mind raced. What if he falls? What if no one else helps him? The train horn blared, and she knew her choice would cost her. Still, something in her heart decided before her head could. She took a deep breath, stopped running, and turned toward the old man. "Excuse me, sir, do you need help?" she asked softly, kneeling beside him. The man looked up, surprised and a little embarrassed. "Oh dear, I didn't mean to trouble anyone," he said with a shaky smile. But his suitcase was clearly too heavy, and his hand trembled on the cane. Danielle smiled kindly and said, "It's no trouble at all." As she lifted the suitcase, she heard the final beep of the train doors closing. She turned her head just in time to see it pull away, leaving her behind. For a moment, disappointment hit her like a wave. She had worked so hard for this day. All those late nights, all that hope, gone in a flash. But when she looked back at the old man's grateful face, something inside her shifted. His eyes were gentle and full of appreciation. "You're very kind, young lady," he said softly. "Not many people stop anymore." Danielle helped him to a nearby bench, her breath still heavy from running. The morning rush continued around them, but for her, time seemed to slow down. She realized that while she had missed her train, she hadn't lost everything. Maybe, just maybe, this moment was meant to happen. As the old man settled into the seat and thanked her again, Danielle felt a strange calmness. She didn't know it yet, but this single act, this small decision to care, would soon change the entire course of her life. Danielle sat beside the old man on the cold metal bench, still catching her breath. The train was gone, but the noise of the station carried on, footsteps, voices, and the distant hum of another train pulling in. She glanced at the old man, who was holding his cane tightly, his hands trembling slightly. His suit was old but neat, and his hat rested crookedly on his lap. He looked like someone who had once carried great dignity but had grown tired with time. "You're very kind, miss," he said again, his voice warm but weak. "Most people don't stop for anyone these days." Danielle smiled softly. "It's no problem, sir. I couldn't just walk by." The old man gave a slow nod, his eyes sparkling a little. You've got a good heart. The world needs more people like you. Danielle looked down, a bit embarrassed. Compliments always made her shy. I just did what anyone should do, she said. He chuckled. Should do, yes, but not everyone does. There was a pause between them, the kind of silence that felt calm rather than awkward. Danielle noticed the way he struggled to breathe after every few words and how his cane wobbled whenever he shifted. She gently placed her hand on his suitcase and said, Where are you headed? Maybe I can help you get there. He smiled faintly. Just trying to get to the hospital down the street. My legs aren't what they used to be. Danielle's heart softened. Are you going alone? She asked. Yes, he said, glancing down. I lost my wife a few years back. Since then, it's just me. Danielle felt a pang in her chest. She thought of her own mother, who lived in another city and often told her how proud she was. The idea of growing old alone made her throat tighten. Well, she said gently, you're not alone today. The old man looked at her with grateful eyes. You remind me of my granddaughter, he whispered. She used to walk with me just like this, always smiling, always patient. Something about his tone made Danielle's eyes sting. She didn't know why this simple moment with a stranger felt so meaningful. Maybe it was because, deep down, she knew how easily the world forgets its kindness in the rush of everyday life. The loudspeaker announced another train approaching. Not hers, but the sound reminded her of what she had lost. She sighed quietly. She had missed her interview. The job she had been dreaming about for weeks was now out of reach. The old man noticed the sadness on her face. Did you miss your train because of me? He asked softly. Danielle didn't want to make him feel guilty, so she quickly smiled. Oh, it's okay. There will be other trains. He studied her carefully, his old eyes sharp with wisdom. You're one of those people who think of others before themselves, aren't you? Danielle shrugged. I guess that's what being a nurse does to you. A nurse? His face brightened. Well, that explains everything. You've got the soul of a healer. She laughed lightly. I'm trying. I've been working night shifts at the hospital. It's hard, but I love helping people. The man nodded slowly, as if understanding something deeper. Helping people is never wasted time, he said. It always comes back to you in ways you don't expect. His words sank deep into her heart. Danielle didn't know this man, yet his voice carried a strange comfort, like a message she was meant to hear. They sat there for a few minutes, just talking. He told her about his late wife, how they used to ride trains together when they were young. She told him about her dreams, how she wanted to work in community health someday, to help those who couldn't afford good care. The more they talked, the less Danielle cared about the missed train. Something inside her told her that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Finally, she stood up and said, Come on, sir. Let me help you get to that hospital. It's not far, he smiled, holding out his arm. You're a blessing, young lady. They walked slowly together through the station, Danielle steadying him with each step. The crowd flowed around them, but it felt like they were in their own quiet world, one built of kindness and connection. The morning rush had turned into something peaceful. As they reached the exit, sunlight spilled through the glass doors. The old man stopped and turned to her. You know, he said, I almost didn't come here today. I wasn't feeling well this morning. But now I think I was meant to meet you. Danielle smiled. Maybe I was meant to meet you too. He chuckled, his eyes shining. Life works in mysterious ways. Sometimes missing one train means catching the right one later. Those words stayed with her long after they parted ways. She didn't realize it yet, but that brief encounter and that choice to stop and help was the beginning of something extraordinary. As she watched him disappear into the hospital doors, she whispered to herself, maybe missing that train wasn't such a bad thing after all. And somewhere in her heart, she felt the faint, warm flicker of destiny beginning to unfold. Danielle stood at the hospital gate, watching the old man disappear through the sliding doors. The city was alive with noise, buses rumbling, horns blaring, people hurrying to wherever they needed to be. But inside her, everything felt strangely quiet. She had missed her train, missed her interview, and yet she didn't feel regret. Not completely. There was a calm warmth in her chest. The kind that only comes when you know you did something right. Still, a small voice inside her whispered, You worked so hard for this chance. Maybe you should have kept walking. She sighed and checked her phone. 5 missed calls from her friend Jasmine, who had been helping her prepare for the interview. Danielle winced and called her back. Girl, where are you? Jasmine's voice came through in a rush. They just started calling people in. Don't tell me you're late again. Danielle hesitated, biting her lip. I missed the train, she admitted softly. What?
Danielle!
Jasmine groaned. You promised this time would be different. What happened? Danielle looked back at the hospital entrance. There was an old man who needed help. He was struggling with his luggage and no one stopped. I couldn't just walk away. For a few seconds, Jasmine said nothing. Then she sighed. You've got the biggest heart, Danny, but sometimes kindness costs too much. Danielle smiled faintly. Maybe, but I think it's worth it. After hanging up, she sat on a bench outside the hospital. The morning sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows across the pavement. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking about the old man's words. Helping people is never wasted time. She had always believed that. That's why she became a nurse in the first place. She remembered her first day in nursing school, the nervous excitement, the fear of failing, and her teacher's voice saying, You're not just treating wounds. You're healing hearts. Danielle smiled at the memory. Maybe missing the interview wasn't the end of the world. Maybe something better was waiting for her, something she couldn't see yet. She decided to grab a cup of coffee from a small cafe near the hospital. As she waited for her order, her eyes drifted toward the people outside. A mother holding her child's hand, a man helping a stranger pick up dropped papers, a delivery driver smiling at an elderly woman crossing the road, tiny acts of kindness everywhere hidden in plain sight. And suddenly Danielle realized something. The world wasn't as cold as it seemed. People did care, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly. Maybe she hadn't lost anything after all. Maybe she had just been reminded of what truly mattered. As she stirred her coffee, she heard someone calling her name. She turned around, surprised. It was the old man, the same one she had helped at the station. He was walking slowly toward her with his cane, but his steps looked steadier than before. Mr. Thompson, she said, standing up in surprise. He smiled. I thought I might find you here. You didn't even tell me your name, young lady. Danielle laughed softly. It's Danielle. Danielle Parker. He nodded thoughtfully. Danielle. A good name. Thank you again for your kindness back there. You remind me of what humanity still looks like. She blushed slightly. I'm just glad you're okay. They sat together, sipping coffee. Mr. Thompson told her more about his life, how he had once been the director of a hospital, how he missed the days of walking through the wards and greeting patients. I may be retired, he said, but I still believe one act of compassion can save a life, sometimes even two. Danielle smiled. You sound like my professor, he chuckled. Well, she must be a wise woman then. They laughed together, the kind of laughter that feels like sunlight after rain. Then, out of curiosity, he asked, So, why were you in such a hurry this morning? You looked like you were chasing time itself. Danielle told him about the interview, how it was her dream job and how she had missed it because she stayed to help him. She said it lightly, not wanting him to feel guilty, but she saw the sadness flicker in his eyes. I'm so sorry, my dear, he said softly. I didn't mean for you to lose your chance because of me. Danielle reached across the table and shook her head. Please don't say that. I made a choice. I'd rather miss one train than miss the chance to be kind. Mr. Thompson looked at her for a long moment, admiration shining in his eyes. Then he smiled, a slow, knowing smile. You remind me of the kind of nurse I used to hire. Not the ones chasing promotions, but the ones chasing purpose. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small card. Here, he said, sliding it across the table. Danielle looked down. It was a business card, thick, cream-colored, with gold lettering. It read, Dr. Harold Thompson, retired director, Atlanta Community Medical Center. If you ever need anything, he said, give me a call. I might be retired, but I still know people who value hearts like yours. Danielle stared at the card, speechless. She hadn't expected this at all. Thank you, sir, she finally said. I don't know what to say. Just keep being who you are, he replied. That's thanks enough. As he stood to leave, Danielle felt something shift in her soul, a quiet understanding that life had its own timing, its own mysterious way of rewarding goodness. When she watched him walk away, she realized she hadn't just helped a stranger. She had crossed paths with someone who might change her life forever. And for the first time that morning, Danielle didn't feel like she had missed a train. She felt like she had just boarded the right one. The afternoon sun hung high above the city, casting golden light on the glass windows of the cafe. Danielle sat there for a while after Mr. Thompson left, staring at the business card he had given her. It felt heavy in her hand, not because of its size but because of what it symbolized. It was more than just a piece of paper. It was a reminder that sometimes the moments we think are accidents are actually small miracles in disguise. Still, a quiet wave of worry began to creep in. She had missed her interview completely. There would be no second chance, no callback, no new beginning. Or so she thought. She sighed and slipped the card into her bag, whispering to herself, "It's fine. Everything happens for a reason." But deep inside, a part of her couldn't stop wondering if she had just let go of her only chance at a better future. She walked back to the train station, the crowd thinner now than it had been that morning. The same platform where she had made that life-changing decision now looked ordinary again, just another busy place filled with strangers. But Danielle didn't feel ordinary. She felt changed, though she couldn't quite explain how. As she waited for the next train, she thought about what Mr. Thompson had said. Helping people is never wasted time. The words echoed in her heart, pushing away her doubt. Maybe missing that train had stopped her from rushing down a path that wasn't truly meant for her. Maybe something bigger was waiting. The train arrived with a low hum and Danielle stepped in. She found a seat by the window and watched the city roll past. The old brick buildings, the street vendors, the children laughing on sidewalks. It all felt different now, like the world had softened around her. When she finally reached home, the apartment felt unusually quiet. She dropped her bag on the couch and sank into her seat, staring at the ceiling. Her cat Milo jumped into her lap, purring softly as if trying to comfort her. She smiled weakly and stroked his fur. "Hey, buddy," she murmured. "Your mom messed up again." "Missed her big interview?" Milo meowed in response and Danielle laughed lightly. "Yeah, I know. You think it's okay too, huh?" That night she made herself a cup of tea and sat by the window. The city lights sparkled below like stars scattered across the ground. She replayed the morning in her mind. The old man's trembling hands, his kind smile, his calm wisdom. Most people would have seen it as just a coincidence, but Danielle couldn't shake the feeling that their meeting was meant to happen. As the steam from her tea curled into the air, she whispered, "Maybe missing that train wasn't bad luck. Maybe it was a sign." The next day she returned to her usual hospital job. The long hours, the buzzing machines, the tired faces, it was all familiar. But something inside her had shifted. She found herself speaking more gently to patients, listening more carefully to their stories, feeling their emotions as if they were her own. One afternoon, while checking on an elderly woman recovering from surgery, Danielle felt a strange tug in her chest. The woman reminded her of Mr. Thompson, the same frail hands, the same hopeful eyes. "You remind me of my granddaughter," the woman said with a soft smile. Danielle blinked in surprise. The words were almost the same ones Mr. Thompson had said. Her heart swelled with warmth. Maybe these small encounters were messages, gentle nudges from the universe reminding her that kindness always circles back. Later that evening, as Danielle walked home from work, her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, a little cautious. "Is this Miss Danielle Parker?" an older male voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "This is Harold Thompson," the voice said kindly. "We met yesterday at the station." Danielle's face lit up instantly. "Oh, Mr. Thompson, how are you feeling?" He chuckled. "Much better, thanks to you. I just wanted to thank you again. And if you're free sometime this week, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. He's the current director at the hospital I once managed. I told him about you, about your kindness and your dedication, and he's quite interested in meeting you." Danielle froze. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. "You told him about me?" "Yes," Mr. Thompson replied warmly. "You see, good people deserve good chances, and sometimes those chances just need a little help finding them." Her eyes filled with tears. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. The opportunity she thought she had lost, the one she had cried over just hours ago, had come back in a way she could never have planned. "Thank you, sir," she said softly, her voice shaking. You have no idea how much this means to me." "Oh, I think I do," he said with a smile in his voice. "Meet me tomorrow morning at the Atlanta Community Medical Center. I'll be waiting." When the call ended, Danielle sat in silence, her heart pounding. She looked up at the night sky, the stars twinkling through her window, and whispered, "Thank you, God." That night, she didn't feel like a woman who had missed her train. She felt like someone who had finally found her direction, not through luck, but through love, compassion, and faith. As she drifted off to sleep, one truth settled in her heart. Sometimes the road you never planned to take leads exactly where you're meant to be. The next morning, Danielle woke up before sunrise. The soft glow of dawn filtered through her, curtains painting her small apartment in shades of gold and pink. She didn't need her alarm. Her heart had done the job for her. She felt nervous, excited, and strangely peaceful all at once. She got dressed carefully, choosing her best light blue blouse and neatly pressed pants. It wasn't a fancy outfit, but it made her feel confident. As she looked in the mirror, she whispered to herself, "Whatever happens today, just be kind, like always." The streets were still quiet when she stepped outside, the air cool and fresh. Her footsteps echoed on the pavement as she made her way toward the bus stop. The world felt new, as if it was waiting to show her something special. When she reached the Atlanta Community Medical Center, the place took her breath away. The tall glass building reflected the morning sun like a mirror, and people in white coats hurried in and out with purpose. Danielle took a deep breath and walked through the front doors, clutching her bag nervously. At the reception desk, she asked softly, "Excuse me, I'm here to meet Dr. Harold Thompson." The young receptionist smiled warmly. "Oh, you must be Miss Parker. He's expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 3rd floor. He's in the conference room." Danielle nodded, her heart pounding faster with every step she took. As the elevator doors opened, she caught a glimpse of her reflection. Calm face, steady eyes, but a storm of emotion swirling underneath. When she entered the conference room, she found Mr. Thompson sitting at the end of the long wooden table, his cane resting beside him. He turned and smiled when he saw her. "Danielle," he said warmly. "I'm so glad you came. Come in, my dear." She smiled back, walking toward him. "It's good to see you again, sir." Before she could sit down, another man entered the room, tall, sharp-suited, with silver hair and kind but serious eyes. Mr. Thompson stood slightly and said, "Danielle, I'd like you to meet Dr. Robert Green, the current director of this hospital." Danielle's heart skipped a beat. This was no casual meeting. This was something far bigger. She quickly extended her hand. "It's an honor to meet you, sir." Dr. Green shook her hand firmly. "Likewise, Miss Parker. Harold has told me quite a bit about you, about your work as a nurse, your dedication, and the story from the train station." Danielle's cheeks warmed with embarrassment. "Oh, it was nothing special, really." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "Nonsense, it was very special. You could have walked away, but you didn't. That says everything about the kind of person you are." Dr. Green smiled, leaning forward. "We need more people like you in healthcare, people who lead with heart, not just skill." Danielle listened quietly, still unsure where this was going. Then Dr. Green continued, "Harold mentioned that you were looking for new opportunities. We actually have an opening here in our community outreach department, a program focused on providing healthcare access to underprivileged areas. Would that be something you'd be interested in?" For a second, Danielle forgot to breathe. That was her dream. Exactly what she had always wanted to do. She stared at them in disbelief. "Yes, sir. That's all I've ever wanted. To help people who can't afford proper care." Dr. Green nodded approvingly. "Then maybe fate put us on the same path." He handed her a folder across the table. "This outlines the position details. I'd like to schedule a more formal interview later this week, but something tells me you're already the right fit." Danielle took the folder with trembling hands. "Thank you. I don't even know how to thank you both enough." Mr. Thompson smiled gently. "You already did, when you stopped to help me." I may have been the one struggling that day, but you reminded me of what compassion truly looks like." Her eyes filled with tears. "I just did what anyone should do," she whispered. "That's exactly what makes it so rare," he said softly. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. They discussed her experience, her vision, and the small community projects she had volunteered for in the past. Dr. Green was impressed by her sincerity and depth of care. He told her that the position wasn't just about medical skills, it was about connecting with people. And Danielle had that gift. When the meeting ended, Mr. Thompson walked her to the lobby. "You see, Danielle," he said, smiling, "sometimes when you miss one train, life sends you another one, a better one, heading in the right direction." Danielle laughed through her tears. "I'm starting to believe that, sir." He patted her hand gently. "Good. Keep believing. The world needs more hearts like yours, steady, selfless, and unafraid to choose kindness, even when it costs something." As she stepped outside the hospital, the sky seemed brighter, the air lighter. Danielle paused for a moment and looked up at the clouds. Her heart was overflowing, with gratitude, with wonder, with hope. The job she thought she had lost had been replaced with something far more meaningful. The stranger she had stopped to help had become the bridge to her destiny. And as she walked down the street, holding that folder tightly against her chest, she whispered with a smile, "Sometimes the most beautiful detours lead straight to where you belong." She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of something even greater. A chapter of her life that would prove that kindness doesn't just change others. It transforms you too. The next few days passed in a blur of disbelief and gratitude. Danielle couldn't stop thinking about how her life had changed so suddenly, and all because she had stopped to help an old man at a train station. Every night before falling asleep, she replayed that moment in her head. The sound of the train doors closing, the weight of the suitcase, the warmth in Mr. Thompson's eyes. What had felt like a simple act of kindness had become the turning point of her entire life. On Friday morning, she received a call from Dr. Green's office confirming her interview for the community outreach position. Danielle's heart fluttered with excitement and nervousness. She wanted to do her best, not for money or status, but because this opportunity felt meant for her. That morning, she dressed in a neat white blouse and gray skirt, her hands trembling as she pinned her name badge. "You can do this, Danielle," she whispered to her reflection. "You've come this far by faith. Why, don't stop now." The ride to the hospital felt like stepping into a dream. When she entered the glass building again, everything felt different, brighter, warmer, almost alive. The receptionist greeted her with a smile that made her heart settle. "They're waiting for you upstairs," she said cheerfully. When Danielle walked into the conference room, she saw Dr. Green seated with two other administrators. To her surprise, Mr. Thompson was there too, sitting proudly in the corner with his cane beside him. He looked healthier, his face glowing with quiet joy. "Danielle," he greeted, waving her over. "I couldn't miss this. I had to see my good luck charm in action." She laughed nervously. "You make it sound like I'm a miracle worker." He smiled warmly. "You are. You just don't know it yet." The interview began, but it didn't feel like a test. It felt like a conversation. They talked about her nursing experiences, her time volunteering at shelters, and her belief that compassion was as essential as medicine. Every word came straight from her heart, and every story reflected the same truth. She genuinely cared about people. At one point, Dr. Green leaned forward and said, "Danielle, can I ask, what made you choose nursing in the first place?" Danielle paused, thinking back to her childhood. "My mother," she said softly. "She was a single parent. When I was little, she got very sick, and I remember watching how the nurses treated her, not just as a patient, but as a person. Their kindness gave her strength when medicine couldn't. I wanted to do that for others someday." The room was silent for a moment. Then Mr. Thompson smiled proudly, nodding as if he already knew what her answer would be. After the interview, Dr. Green stood and shook her hand firmly. "Thank you, Danielle. We'll be in touch very soon, but honestly, I already know you belong here." She felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank you, sir. That means more than you know." When she left the room, Mr. Thompson followed her into the hallway. "You did beautifully," he said, his voice filled with pride. Danielle smiled shyly. "You think so?" He chuckled. "I don't think I know." Then after a pause, he said something that made her stop walking. "You see, Danielle, there's something I didn't tell you before. I wasn't just the hospital director here years ago. I founded this outreach program myself, the one you're applying to lead." Danielle's eyes widened in shock. "You did?" He nodded. "Yes, it was my dream, to bring care to those forgotten by the system. But when I retired, I worried it would fade away. Now seeing you here, I feel peace for the first time in years. You're the kind of person this program was made for." Her throat tightened with emotion. "Mr. Thompson, I don't even know how to thank you." He smiled, eyes soft with kindness. "You already did, when you stopped that morning. You didn't just help me, Danielle. You helped yourself without knowing it. You changed both our lives." Tears streamed down her cheeks. But this time they weren't from sadness. They were from gratitude, from awe at how life could weave such beautiful connections out of the simplest choices. A few days later, the call came. Dr. Green's voice on the line was cheerful and steady. "Danielle Parker," he said. "Welcome to the Atlanta Community Medical Center family. You got the job." For a long moment she couldn't speak. She covered her mouth with her hand, laughing and crying at the same time. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you so much." When she hung up, she looked around her tiny apartment, her heart glowing with joy. She whispered into the quiet room, "Mom, I made it." That evening she called Mr. Thompson to share the news. He chuckled on the other end, his voice full of warmth. "I told you, Danielle, missing that train was the best thing that ever happened to you." She laughed softly through happy tears. "You were right. I thought I was helping you that day, but really you were sent to help me." He paused for a moment before replying, "That's the beauty of kindness, my dear. It always finds its way back, sometimes when you least expect it." Danielle smiled, staring out her window at the glowing city below. The stars above seemed to shimmer brighter that night, as if celebrating her victory. She had started the week thinking she'd lost everything, but in truth she had gained far more than she ever dreamed. That day at the train station wasn't just a twist of fate. It was a miracle in disguise, a reminder that the smallest act of compassion can open the biggest doors. And as Danielle drifted to sleep that night, she finally understood. Life's most beautiful blessings often come disguised as ordinary moments, and one act of kindness can truly change everything. The morning air felt different that day, crisp, clear, and full of quiet possibility. Danielle stood by her apartment window, watching the sunrise stretch across the city skyline. The orange and pink hues painted the sky like hope reborn, and for the first time in years she felt at peace. It had been a week since she received the job offer. She still couldn't believe it. Every day she woke up half expecting it to be a dream, but the badge lying on her table said otherwise. Danielle Parker, Senior Nurse, Community Outreach Division. She picked it up carefully, running her fingers over the engraved letters. A smile spread across her face. "You did it," she whispered to herself. "You actually did it." When she reached the hospital that morning, everything felt alive. The buzz of conversation, the sound of nurses greeting each other, the gentle beeping of machines that filled the halls. But Danielle walked with quiet confidence now. She wasn't just another nurse anymore. She was part of something meaningful, something that would touch lives in ways she had always dreamed of. Her first week in the new department was challenging but fulfilling. She traveled with a small team to neighborhoods that lacked proper clinics, helping families who couldn't afford medical care. Every smile she received, every thank you whispered by a stranger, reminded her why she had chosen this path. And yet every evening when she got home, she still thought about Mr. Thompson, the man whose single meeting had changed her destiny. She made a habit of calling him every few days just to check on him. He always answered with the same cheerful tone, teasing her like an old friend. But one Friday evening, something unusual happened. Danielle was just about to prepare dinner when her phone rang. She smiled when she saw his name flash across the screen. "Mr. Thompson," she greeted. "You're calling earlier than usual." His voice, though still kind, sounded softer than normal. "Hello, my dear Danielle. I didn't want to wait till tomorrow. I just wanted to hear how you're settling in. I love it, she said instantly. It's more than I ever imagined. We treated 20 families this week. I wish you could have seen the smiles on their faces. I can imagine it, he chuckled weakly. That's exactly what I hoped for when I started that program years ago. And now it's in the right hands. Danielle smiled. You give me too much credit, sir. I'm just trying to follow in your footsteps. He was silent for a moment, then said softly, No, my dear. You're walking your own path and doing it beautifully. Something about the tenderness in his voice made her chest tighten. Are you feeling okay, sir? She asked quietly. I'm fine, he replied after a short pause. Just a little tired, but hearing your voice gives me strength. You know, Danielle, meeting you reminded me of everything good I once believed in. Compassion, purpose, faith. You helped me see that kindness never dies. It just waits for someone to carry it forward. Tears welled in her eyes. You carried it long before I did, sir. I just picked it up where you left off. He chuckled faintly. You're too humble. But I'll tell you something. I always believed that God sends people into our lives at the right moment. You missed your train that day, yes, but maybe that train wasn't meant to take you where you thought you were going. Maybe it was meant to bring you to me, so I could pass this torch on to someone worthy. Danielle pressed the phone tighter to her ear, her throat aching. Mr. Thompson, please don't talk like that, she whispered. He laughed softly, the sound fragile but warm. Don't worry, child. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just saying thank you. For being the miracle I didn't know I needed. The line went quiet for a moment, the kind of silence that felt sacred. Danielle blinked back tears, whispering, And thank you for being mine. They talked a little longer, about the weather, her patience, and his favorite jazz records. Before hanging up, he said, Keep shining, Danielle. Promise me that. I promise, she said firmly. When the call ended, Danielle sat there for a long time, holding the phone to her chest. She didn't know why, but she felt a deep ache inside, a strange, wordless feeling that this call had meant more than either of them had said aloud. The next morning, just as she was preparing to leave for work, her phone rang again, but this time it wasn't Mr. Thompson's number. It was from the hospital. Hello? She answered quickly. Miss Parker? A nurse's voice said gently. This is St. Joseph's Medical Center. I'm calling about Dr. Harold Thompson. Danielle's heart stopped. What about him? I'm sorry to inform you. He passed away peacefully last night. The words felt like thunder crashing in her chest. Her knees buckled and she sank to the floor, gripping the phone tightly. For several minutes she couldn't move. Tears fell silently as memories flooded her mind. His smile, his laughter, his words of wisdom. The man who had changed her life was gone. But as she sat there surrounded by grief, something inside her shifted again. His words from last night echoed in her heart. Maybe it was meant to bring you to me, so I could pass this torch on. Danielle closed her eyes, whispering through her tears. I'll carry it. Mr. Thompson, I'll keep your light alive. That evening, she visited the hospital where he had once worked. Standing in front of the building, she looked up at the fading sky, her eyes full of both sorrow and gratitude. He was gone, but his kindness, his wisdom, his belief in her, they were still here, alive in every life she touched. And as the night deepened, Danielle smiled through her tears. Because she finally understood that some people don't stay forever. They arrive to change your life and then they live on through the kindness you continue to give. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window as Danielle sat quietly at her desk, the soft morning light brushing across her face. It had been 3 months since Mr. Thompson's passing, yet his voice still echoed in her heart. Calm, kind, and full of wisdom. The world had moved on, as it always does, but Danielle's life had changed forever. Every day she carried a little piece of him with her, in her words, in her work, in her way of seeing people. He had taught her that kindness wasn't just something you gave. It was something you became. The community outreach program had grown beautifully under her guidance. Clinics that once stood half empty were now filled with laughter and hope. Danielle had made it her mission to honor Mr. Thompson's dream, not just by providing care, but by giving people dignity. One morning, as she packed supplies for a rural outreach trip, she looked at the new nameplate on her office door. It read, Danielle Parker, Director of Community Health Services. She smiled softly. The title didn't make her proud. The meaning behind it did. She thought of the man who believed in her before anyone else did. "You did this, Mr. Thompson," she whispered. "You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." As she climbed into the van with her team, the city slowly gave way to open fields and quiet country roads. The journey was long, but Danielle loved every minute of it. Every person she met reminded her why she had chosen this life, because every soul mattered. When they reached a small town clinic, she noticed a little boy sitting on the steps outside, crying softly. His clothes were worn and he was clutching a small bandaged arm. Danielle knelt beside him and smiled gently. "Hey there, sweetheart." "What happened?" He sniffled. "I fell off my bike," he said quietly. "It hurts." She examined his arm carefully and smiled. "You're going to be just fine, brave boy. Let's get you cleaned up, okay?" As she led him inside and began treating his wound, she noticed his mother watching from the doorway, eyes full of worry but also gratitude. When Danielle finished, the boy smiled shyly and said, "Thank you." And right then she felt it, the same warmth in her chest that she had felt the day she helped Mr. Thompson at the train station. That small spark of connection, that invisible thread that binds one act of kindness to another. Later that day, as the sun began to set, Danielle sat outside the clinic, sipping tea and watching the sky turn orange and pink. A young nurse who worked with her joined her on the steps. "Ma'am," the nurse said softly, "can I ask you something? How do you stay so kind all the time? Even on the hardest days?" Danielle smiled at the question, her eyes still fixed on the horizon. "Because someone once showed me what kindness really means," she said. "He taught me that even when life doesn't go the way you planned, compassion can lead you exactly where you're meant to be." The nurse nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. "I hope I can be like that someday." "You already are," Danielle replied gently. "Kindness doesn't wait for the right time or title. It starts with small things. A smile, a helping hand, a word of comfort." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the fading sun melt into the fields. The world was quiet, peaceful. And in that silence, Danielle felt a familiar warmth, the sense that somewhere, somehow Mr. Thompson was smiling too. That night, back at home, Danielle took out the small business card he had given her months ago, the one she had almost thrown away after missing her train. The edges were worn now, but the words were still clear. Dr. Harold Thompson, retired director, Atlanta Community Medical Center. She placed it in a small glass frame on her bedside table. Beneath it, she added a note she wrote herself. "One act of kindness can change 2 lives, theirs and yours." As she lay down to rest, her heart was full. Life hadn't gone the way she had planned. It had gone better. Missing her train had led her exactly to the destination she was meant for. She closed her eyes, thinking of how far she'd come. From that hurried morning at the station to this peaceful night filled with gratitude, her story had come full circle. And somewhere beyond the stars, she liked to imagine Mr. Thompson walking beside his wife again, smiling proudly and saying, "I told you she was special." Danielle smiled through her tears. She knew he was right. But what made her truly special wasn't luck or talent or timing. It was something much simpler. The courage to stop, to care, and to choose kindness when it mattered most. As the clock ticked softly in the quiet room, Danielle whispered into the dark, "You were right, sir. Kindness always finds its way back," and with that, she drifted to sleep, not as a woman who had missed a train, but as one who had found her purpose, because in the end, it wasn't the train that defined her journey. It was the moment she chose love over hurry, and that choice changed everything.